Thank you. Thank you. How are you, Andy?
I'm fine. How are you, Janelle?
I'm good. I watched this movie and it's absolutely incredible. I love that
Thank you.
you didn't really know there was no like specific monster, there was no specific killer, so it kind of made it a little more interesting.
Thank you.
How did this kind of manifest for you?
Manifest. I love that word. I use that word when I was directing. It manifested in my life. My dad was a paleontologist and a geologist, and he was also devoutly religious. And I used to ask when I was growing up, how do you rectify religion with being a man of science? And he said, well, science is all about asking questions. Don't give like religion is searching and science is searching. And early on, he hooked me onto UFOs and Loch Ness Monster and Bigfoot just to like engage my mind. Like you never know. And he told me once as I got older that when years earlier, he had a dream one night that he saw the angel of death in his dream. And that the next morning the phone rang and it was my grandfather telling him that my grandmother had passed away unexpectedly. And for him to tell me that as a man of science, I thought he struggled with that. And I loved that, knowing that we all can struggle. And then when I'm in high school, in Texas, there's a blue light cemetery. And the thing you're supposed to do was to drive with a bunch of friends and go tell ghost stories. This is an abandoned cemetery, 100 years. It is fenced in. It is barbed wire fence everywhere. We load up the car, we drive. There's a canopy of dead trees. There's no light. We get there in the middle of the night. We have brought a couple of bottles of Andre's Cold Duck, the champion of champagne for high schoolers. And we go over the fence, but to get over the barbed wire, we had to take jackets and throw them over the barbed wire. And so we go out and we're sitting there and it's just silent. It's just our laughter. It's just our telling ghost stories. And then we hear something, what amounts to heavy footsteps, not animal feet, not dog running, not a raccoon, not anything, not rabbit. This is heavy foot. But there was no security guard. There was no cops. There was no cars. We were the only place you could park. There was no car for miles on the other side. We freak out. We run over the fence, and the person right before me inadvertently knocked the jacket over. So I had to go. And the barbed wire, it's hard to see in the light, the barbed wire cut all the way through and left
Oh,
me with a
no.
scar. And then, as I was bleeding out and doing all things, to this day, that group, we would talk about what it was, and not one of us had the same answer. Somebody thought it was clearly someone playing a joke. Somebody thought it was super net. Like we all had different ideas. Cut to later in my career, I was at the Queen Mary researching a project. A bunch of producers were on a private tour. And we're in the engine room, which is notoriously haunted. And while we're in a circle talking, a iron pulley this big drops from the ceiling and brushes past my arm. Had I been over just a fraction, I'd be dead. The tour guide's eyes popped, got us out of there. And when we drove back from Long Beach to LA, about an hour and a half drive, all these people are in the entertainment industry. Everybody had an opinion about what did or didn't happen. And for me, who experienced it, I'm like, somebody's like, oh, they must have done it to scare us. And I was like, you don't drop an iron pulley that could have randomly just hit me to scare us. And so at that point, I just started thinking, I find it fascinating in life that fear and our interpretation of fear. And one person who would easily say that's just the neighbor trying to scare you, and somebody else just saying no, that's UFOs. And everybody has a family story about something. And people who I know who were like, well, we don't play with Ouija boards in the house. Like all of those things to me inspired me to want to make this movie and send 7 friends in an RV on a road trip and pull away any sense of hope and that could come their way, and just make them work it out and ask every question.
I love that you sent them to a music festival because it reminded me of like me with my friends because I've had so many like experiences, some people say strange. I just say, like, when both of my grandparents passed away,
Mm.
my grandfather gave my mom a clock that we had hung in the house. And right as he passed on that day, my mom woke up real fast and the clock stopped at exactly the time that he passed.
Wow.
The clock my grandmother put in our kitchen, the same thing happened. Like, my mom woke up and she said she heard her calling because my mom is kind of like psychic medium or whatever you want to call her, but and I kind of have the same thing, but it made me think of me and my friends like it was just something that we would do and then stop and like investigate cemeteries and look at stuff, and not that they did that in the movie, but
But that response, and thank you for sharing those stories with me. That response is just it. Somehow there's strength in numbers. It's the old kind of
Mhm.
Scooby-Doo approach is one person should never go investigate, come with people to investigate. And once you take away and start relying on sound, you take sight away, you just add darkness and it's all sound. We generally didn't tell the cast when we were going to bang on the RV from above or below or side or rattle. So a lot of times their jump scare reactions were built in for those moments. And I think, like you said, it's the thing that you start out. This is just going to be a fun weekend. Sex, drugs, rock and roll. Like this is going to be the perfect road trip. And then something goes awry. A lot of it was we would drive, my producing partner Betsy and I, we'd drive from locations. And there was always, it struck me that there'd be some abandoned car on the side of the road. And you'd think, well, what happened? Where are those people? And how come no one's come back to get that car? And there's always abandoned car on road trips, just abandoned, and it's not junk cars, it's nice cars. What happened? That to me made it think like, what would you, if your car, was abandoned or if you ran out of gas and it was the middle of the night, do you sleep in your car and lock the doors? Do you try to hightail it? What things do you have in your car, like a flashlight? All of that went into the movie for me.
what are you working on next, and what do you want to say to everyone that's going to be watching this movie? Because I know I'm running out of time.
Next thing, I still have my musical Heathers, which is on tour right now and getting ready to do 13 going on 30, the musical in the UK. And on Disney Plus, we're doing Wizards Beyond Waverly Place with David Henry and Selena Gomez, and that will start airing in October. And for the fans, like I'm a diehard horror fan. I'm a kid who just is obsessed with horror movies. The idea to be able to get in this playground, but we're just a little indie film, and we just kindly ask if anyone's looking for a bit of an adventure that they would come join us. Indie movies need extra love and support, and we hope that we made something that fans of horror films will be excited about.
Well, I was excited and you did such an amazing job. And I thank you so, so much
Thank
for
you.
taking the time to talk to me. And I
Oh,
hope you make like a documentary about all of this and about your adventures, and
I we
or write a
filmed
book.
stuff. We filmed stuff, and then we kept saying maybe we should add that. Maybe we should add that. And I was like, maybe that is part two. Is the journey that got us there.
That sounds good. That would be great. Well,
I
I
really appreciate you taking the time today.
thank you, Andy, and have a great rest of your day. And thank you for making such a cool movie. I loved it. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thanks for
Have a
sharing.
great day.
Thank
Thank
Bye.
you.
you. Now
Thank you, Lisa. See you.
I'll send this over.